So, good afternoon. Welcome to this second day of the session EMEWE of this 23rd ICCSA International, as called by Professor Gervasi yesterday, community, not a conference, international community on computational science and its application. I will give 50 minutes for each presentation. We will start with Federica Russo, that I see online. The title is Urban Slum Upgrading, a model for expeditious estimation of the cost of interventions.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm sharing my presentation.
The floor is yours.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Federica Russo, a PhD student in the Department of Civil Engineering at the University of Salerno. And today, together with my colleague Michele Vietri, I'm going to present the paper called Urban Slum Upgrading, a model for expeditious estimation of the cost of intervention. The paper will be structured as follows: an introduction on the phenomenon of slums in the world, the definition and the characteristics of a slum, the model for expeditious estimation of the cost of redevelopment interventions, the application case concerning the Kibera slum that will be introduced by my colleague who had hands-on experience in the field, and conclusions. The slum phenomenon is one of the major contemporary challenges facing the world. According to the World Cities Report, there are about 1.6 billion people living in inadequate housing, nearly 20% of the world's population. Of these, 1 billion live in slums and informal settlements. This number is going to double in the next 30 years if appropriate action won't be taken. But what is a slum? The UN Habitat defines a slum as a densely populated urban settlement that has arisen informally, characterized by dilapidated buildings and living conditions below minimum standards of survival. A slum is said to exist when there is a lack of access to clean water, access to sanitation, adequate and permanent facilities with a sufficient living space, considered to be 4 square meters per person, and guaranteed ownership of one's home. A slum is thus an expression of poverty and the social and economic inequality on the planet. Although widespread globally, most slums are located in the large urban areas of Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South America. Actually, the main problem is the lack of a political will to find structured and sustainable solutions to this complex problem. But considering the poverty, the environmental degradation, and the unhealthy conditions in which slums community live, it will take only a few interventions to meet the minimum requirements set by UN Habitat and guaranteeing citizens at least decent living conditions. In this regard, we have put forward 3 possible intervention scenarios: a minimum level of intervention to satisfy the minimum requirements set by UN Habitat. This means ensuring an access to clean water through the implementation of a water distribution and collection systems, and access to improvement sanitation through the construction of sewerage systems, and a good level of structural quality and sufficient living space. As a second scenario, barely satisfactory level of intervention, which includes works intended to improve the level of livability of the slums. In detail, the planned intervention to be added to the minimum level are an implementation of green infrastructure, construction of road networks, implementation of drainage networks, waste management, and remediation of polluted areas. Lastly, fully satisfactory level of intervention, which involves socio-economic improvements to generate employment and business activities to respond to the problem of severe poverty in the slums. In the light of the proposed intervention scenario, a model for expeditious estimation of a construction cost was characterized with the aim of quantifying the economic resources required to improve the physical conditions of informal settlements. The total construction cost borne by the developer of the intervention is given by the sum of the cost of the expropriation allowance of the area, the cost of construction, the technical expenses, the urbanization charges, and the interest on the financial capital. The construction cost incurred by the construction company, in turn, is given by the sum of technical construction costs, which includes the cost of labor, materials, and freight and transportation, general expenses, and the bidder's profits. These formulas have been made explicit only for the first two levels of intervention because there are no special construction works planned for the fully satisfactory level. Instead, there are only some action to improve the socio-economic fabric of the slums. Below, the construction costs for the minimum level of intervention are shown, which include the technical cost of demolishing the precarious housing area and constructing new housing, the technical cost of constructing the water supply and the wastewater collection network. For the barely satisfactory level of intervention, in addition to the cost of the previous level, technical costs are provided for drainage network, road network, and green infrastructure. The most suitable and the most expeditious procedure for the preliminary cost estimation of a slum redevelopment intervention is the synthetic comparative procedure. This procedure estimates construction costs through the comparison with no cost of similar works already carried out. The process involves a first step of identification of the intervention scenario and the typologies of civil works to be carried out, a selection of a reference sample for each typology of civil works, a choice of a technical parameter for measuring a sample consistency, the estimation of parametric costs, and the comparison of and the estimation of total intervention cost. The model shown was applied to estimate the cost of intervention for the redevelopment of one of the world's largest slums, Kibera. In this regard, I shall now give the floor to my colleague Michele.
The expedition construction cost estimation model for urban redevelopment of an informal settlement was applied to the Kibera slum, located in the city of Nairobi, Kenya, where I went last year in October working with UCCSA, a non-governmental organization, which works to create sustainable growth for vulnerable populations. Kibera is located on the outskirts of Nairobi, and it is among the largest slums in the world with an estimated 250,000 inhabitants. It consists of 18 villages and covers 238 square kilometers. This photo from above gives us an idea of the extension of the slum. As expected by the first phase on the expedition construction cost estimation model, possible adequate housing solutions that have already been implemented.
Dr. Pietri, I apologize. Can you put yourself near to the microphone? Because we don't hear you very well.
Okay. And expedited by the first
Okay.
phase on the expedition construction cost estimation model, possible adequate housing solutions that have already been implemented and are international accredited. We analyze in economic terms. Shown below is the Empower Check project by the urban think tank team in South Africa, which involved two-level dwellings built with relatively simple material and construction techniques. Then there is the Quinta Moroi housing project carried out in Chile by architect Ravena, which provide each family half a house, while the other half can be built by the family through self-building. Finally, there is the Kibera Sewage project carried out in Kenya by Kensu, which involved the construction of a condominium. Regarding the infrastructure, the reference model was the slow networking, first pioneered in Indore, India by engineer Parikh. This approach involving the community aimed to find not only solutions for informal areas of the city, but it wants to integrate informal settlement with a wealthy area and provide better infrastructure for both. This approach includes the construction of the water supply network, a sewage district network, a drainage network, and the improvement of the road network. For estimation total cost, interventions were assumed to be implemented by the Kenyan government. Individual details are analyzed using the local currency, namely the Kenya shilling. The cost of a subscription allowance is zero since the Kibera area is owned to the government. For the cost of construction, there is no standard rate for building material because Kenya is a very diverse food market with a highly variable price. Therefore, market surveys were conducted in order to estimate technical fees. For urbanization charges, the National Construction Authority of Kenya estimated the value of 0.5% of the construction cost. The World Bank has been assumed to the capital provider of interest. Specifically, the International Development Association has credited that lasts for 35, 40 years with 10 years for grace period. They are interest free and burdened only with a 0.75% fee on the total loan amount. For the minimum level of intervention involving housing, water mains, and sewerage, depending on the type of housing used, we get total transformation costs ranging from 386 to 546 million euros. Transformation costs for square kilometer range from 162 to 229 million euro, and transformation costs for inhabitants range from 1,500 to 2,200 euros. For the barely satisfactory level of housing water supply, sewerage network, drainage network, road network, and green infrastructure, depending on the type of housing used. We get transformation costs for inhabitants ranging from 1,700 to 2,400 euro. The summary table shows that they increase the even transformation cost from the minimum level to the barely satisfactory level is about 9%. So we can deduce that the most significant investment is the one that allow to satisfy the condition that even if not included, define an informal settlement. In conclusion, operating in an informal setting such as slums, the estimation approach shown certainly has limitation in the first stage of finding data on the cost price of sample works. Official price lists are often data and difficult to find. In addition, cost items do no way reflect official ones, as the economic political environment is highly unstable. but the issues of Islam is still poorly investigated from an economic point of view. And the proposed estimation model aims to provide an economic reference useful in determining the amount of resource to be allocated for urban slum upgrading. It is important to emphasize that initial costs, even though they can be very costly in terms of money, can generate long-term benefit for slum community and their economic and social development. And about all, they can give back dignity to the many people who live in a inhumane condition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. And so that I find very interesting, especially in this moment after not only in these decades, the attention for the social inclusion, especially in the last period, there is the San Marino Declaration in October 2022 that points out the importance of the like a manifesto for a sustainable global future where nobody is left behind. So it's important to take into account these kind of principles that are consistent also with the sustainable development goals. Okay, some questions? Okay, Professor Morano, yes.
So can you repeat how he estimated the cost from other intervention?
Okay, the construction.
Yes.
Have you had Professor Morano? Have you heard the question? Dr.
No, can you repeat? Please?
Okay, the question is, please, could you repeat the methodology that you have applied for the determination of the construction costs in Kibera? How have you assessed the construction cost? Okay, or otherwise, to summarize, there are specific sources that you have taken into account in Kibera, or there is a technician in Kibera, so that you have consulted.
Scusami che...
Le fonti utilizzate.
Sì, no, mi scuso se è possibile ripeterla in italiano.
I haven't...
Can you repeat in Italian the answer, please?
Devo ripetere in italiano. Quali sono state le fonti che avete utilizzato? So which one have been the sources that
for the Kibera project?
For Kibera, sorry?
For Kibera project, sorry.
So some different projects that you had for Kibera. These have been the sources. Okay, thank you. And any other questions?
Chiedo scusa, ma emotivamente è per me, diciamo, impegnativo ripensare a quello che c'era là e riportarlo poi qua.
Sì.
Le fonti are the National Construction Authority of Kenya for the urbanization chart, the International Development Association for the Interest, and stop.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so it's obviously an interesting issue that can be a topic that can be developed and further carried out. Thank you very much, and let's go on with the So I would ask to Felicia Di Liddo because I don't see someone for the two presentation of blockchain and general data. Is there someone? Blockchain and general data protection regulation in the class or no? Online, Paola Perchinunno, Antonella Massari, Samuela Labbate e Corrado Crocetta. Okay, so we will wait, and also for a special statistical approach for the analysis of urban poverty. That is there someone for this presentation? That one related to the problem of slums, so very interesting, and the other one about the legacy, so the management of data. Okay, we will wait. So I kindly ask to Felicia Di Liddo, if it's possible,
Yes.
to share his screen. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Can you see my screen?
Yes. So the title and evaluation methodology to support the definition of temporal priorities lists for urban redevelopment projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The presentation is articulated in different steps. First of all, the aim of the research will be explained, then the illustration of the topic will be carried out, and the methodology will be described. The application of the methodology to a case study will be developed, and the conclusion will be outlined. The present research concerns the relevant and current issue of the urban regeneration, in particular a methodological approach for the identification of the areas included in a city district or a larger macro area for which an higher urgency of urban redevelopment is detected has been developed. The methodology intends to support the definition of temporal priorities and the preference list of the intervention to be implemented, providing an evaluation tool able to highlight the areas on which the first attention of public decision makers should be paid in order to start urban transformation initiative on a larger scale. The need of planning intervention to be carried out on the urban territory according to the target strategic lies is currently central due to the important opportunity provided by the European funds as the Next Generation European Union or the National Recovery and Resilience Plan or the cohesion funds. In this scenario, the evaluation of the project plays a central role for the definition of effective urban development policies. Furthermore, to improve the city's prospects, the strategic planning requires integrated processes of collaboration between the different subjects involved in the initiative in a multi-level governance system that includes all the beneficiaries of the policies, so the communities, the businesses, the association, the political decision makers. The main goal is to promote the involvement of an active dialogue to develop a shared agreement between the population, the professional, the academic communities. In this framework, the growing importance given to the collaborative integrated approaches between public administration and stakeholders has transformed the public modus operandi from the static governance of the urban transformation dynamics in which the different actors acted in solitary form due to their personal interest to a dynamic ones in terms of a collective process aimed at the definition and management of policy making in which the forms of partnership between the different stakeholders are defined. In the present research, a logical model for the identification of the warning areas is proposed. Given a urban area to be renovated, the methodological approach starts from the detection of the main existing architectural, historical, environmental emergency in order to investigate the appreciation of the reference market for the higher or lower proximity to each considered urban pole. Thus, an econometric technique is implemented in order to examine the influence of each factor on selling prices by assuming the property asset price increase as a proxy variable of the benefits generated by the urban redevelopment intervention for local community. The methodology is structured in 7 phases. The first one concerns the identification of the main landmarks included in the considered urban area. These poles should be selected regardless the current conservative condition, so they are amenities or disamenities. The second phase regards the detection of the main intrinsic factor that generally influence the choices of buyers and sellers in the specific market segment analyzed. The third step aims at collecting a sample of properties representative of the local real estate dynamics recently sold with known selling prices and characteristics. The step number 4 focuses on the implementation of the economic technique for determining the most influential intrinsic and extrinsic factors on selling prices. Among the different models generated by the econometric technique, in the step number 5, the selection of the best model is carried out. Having chosen the best model, the verification of the empirical consistency of the coefficient signs should be performed. The sixth phase intends to analyze the functional correlationship between the variables selected by the model and the selling prices in order to assess the positive or the negative appreciation of the market for each factor. The marginal contribution given by the factors on prices are so determined. By taking into account the main goal of the methodology, in this phase, among the urban poles initially considered in the analysis, those for which the highest impact on selling price formation processes are highlighted are identified. Among the landmarks included in the models, in the last phase, those whose proximity affects in negative way the choices of buyers and sellers are pointed out, and therefore the warning areas are focused. The graph shows the list steps in a flowchart in which each phase is fundamental to carry out the next one, in line with the overall target goal of defining the temporal priority list for urban redevelopment project. The proposed approach borrows the logic according to which a variation in the conservative condition of a historical, architectural, or environmental emergency affects the general level of urban quality of the area in which the pole is located and has an impact on the value of the six in building stock and on the preferences of the potential buyers in the context of sale and investment initiative. The system links the different mechanisms of the reference market to the effect connected to the urban regeneration intervention in terms of increasing the level of urban quality of the area and more generally of improvement of the community quality of life. In general terms, the study of real estate market reveals the preferences shown by buyers and sellers within a specific spatial and temporal horizon. In fact, the selling price represents a synthetic indicators of potential buyers' willingness to pay and current owners' willingness to sell, based on the main intrinsic factors of the property and the overall quality of the urban context in which the asset is included. Since the property value is a result of a set of intrinsic and extrinsic factors, it is assumed that a variation in the condition that characterize the area causes an impact on the market value. Using the hedonic price model, the total selling price of the property can be broken down into different components related to the various characteristics that are influential in the price formation processes. The logic underlying the proposed methodological approach concern the existing relationship between the real estate prices and these categories of variable by assuming that the property asset price increase is a proxy variable of the benefits generated by the intervention for local community. The case study concerned the Esquilino district located in the first municipality of the city of Rome in central Italy. In recent decades, a relevant need to define redevelopment processes capable of improving the Esquilino urban quality and of raising the life quality for the district community has been detected. In this sense, the regeneration initiative should be able to enhance the important existing architectural and cultural emergencies, to monitor the social degradation phenomena, and to reduce the presence of unsafe places. The logical operative procedure implemented for the identification of the warning areas in the Esquilino district firstly provide the identification of the main extrinsic and intrinsic factors that are generally considered in the selling phases. The extrinsic factors are represented by the distance of each property from the main landmarks as public squares, historical buildings, urban parks, churches, ministry buildings, the most important theaters, hospital, university, monument, museum, train station, subway stops. Moreover, some attractors are located outside the district and they have been included among the landmarks considered in the analysis by assuming a possible influence on selling price dynamics. The intrinsic factors are those mainly relevant on housing prices according to the indication provided by the local real estate market operators and are the total floor area of the property, the presence of the lift in the building in which the property is located, the floor on which the property is located, and the quality of the residential unit in conservative state. Then, a sample of 400 residential properties sold in the second half of 2021, located in the Esquilino district, whose the selling prices and some specific factors unknown, is collected. The implementation of the economic techniques is allowed to obtain a set of models. These models are expressed in polynomial form, in which the dependent variable is the total selling price and the independent ones are selected by the technique among the intrinsic and extrinsic factors. The next phase regards the selection of the best model. So, among the several models defined by the technique, the choice of the best one has been carried out taking into account the statistical performance level, the complexity of the algebraic expression, and the empirical consistency of the coefficient signs. In general terms, this step is fundamental for the analysis, as it allows the user to select the model for the sum of the functional relationships between the variables and the total selling prices. In the case, among the 46 variables selected for the study, 20 factors have been included in the model generated by the technique as considered influencing in the housing prices formation processes in the Esquilino district. All expected functional correlations between the variables and the total selling prices have been confirmed by those generated by the model, as the empirical consistency of the coefficient signs of the selected factors with the dependent variable of the selling price has been verified. In the figure, a summary of the outputs obtained in terms of positive and negative influence of the locational extrinsic variables on the total selling price is shown. In particular, in blue, the amenities, so the poles whose proximity is appreciated in a positive way on the reference market. In red, these amenities. So the urban poles whose proximity affects in a negative way the choices of buyer and sellers. By taking into account the aim of the research, the red dots represent the warning areas for which high attention from public entities should be paid. The graphic representation allows to immediately identify the warning areas defined by the logical model in order to support the decision makers in the development of effective strategic urban processes. The present research has focused on the proposal of an evaluation methodology capable of identifying among different urban areas those for which a greater and higher transformation cogency is detected to support planners, local authorities, developers, and investors in defining choices based on effective assessment. Future research insights may concern the application of the developed model to other case studies in order to test its validity and to deepen its potentiality in terms of practical implication. The result obtained, so the identification of warning areas could represent an intermediate step of a wider research aimed at investigating different project solutions for the selection of the best one. In this sense, the results could support the choice processes for strategic lines of territorial development, representing a point of view for the investigation of the urban area, which could integrate a SWOT analysis or a context analysis for a general exam of the strength and critical issue of the considered urban context. Thank you.
So thank you very much for also this presentation. Are there any questions about so this issue that is consistent with the current national plan of PNRR, National Plan of Recovery and Resilience, especially Mission 5 Investment 2.1 that concern the social emargination, urban decay, also the Investment 2.2 that is integrated urban planning, so for taking into account a participated mechanism to favor effective solutions, and also for soil sealing, the problem of soil sealing, taking into account that the recent analysis of the ISPRA, the Italian Institute for Environment Protection, has stated that from 2006 and 2021, a territory equal to the entire municipality of Rome has been consumed for roads, for buildings. And with a percentage in Italy only in the 2021 that is the higher in the rest of Europe, 7.13% compared to a 4.2% in the rest of Europe. So these decision support methods can be useful also to guide, to address for effective projectual solutions. Okay, thank you very much, Felicia. And let's go to the presentation comparing environmental values and CO2 values in geographical contexts. Professor Carmelo Torre. Okay. The floor is yours. Be careful on the chair because I know that. Okay,
Thank you. Let me check if I find my USB, right? Yes. is empty. Oh my god. This is how is empty because I stopped my computer. Maybe
You can try.
I check. I had some problem because I stopped my computer. But
Folder is
sorry.
The folder is empty.
Okay, perfect. I can try with my computer maybe because I put there. Okay.
You can move from the
Sorry, but just because of Murphy law, my USB is empty because was switched off because of the battery was very low, and maybe with the file, but it should be here. Let me check this one because it's not. I did use this one. Hopefully, it's the right one. Okay. It's okay.
Ok. Se tu prendi meglio.
Sì. E ci sono le animazioni. Ci sono le animazioni. Quindi pensavo di. Quindi dovrebbe essere questa.
Guarda,
Ok.
dobbiamo aprire con. No, dobbiamo aprire con OpenOffice.
Ah, va bene. Ancora meglio. Sono più democratici. Ok. Bene. E qua. Slideshow.
Screen.
Ok. Okay, I think it's done. Yeah. Okay. So, can I walk and speak because I'm just used to do. Also because I'm not so on the top. So this is not a paper in the traditional way because in this kind of occasion, just because there are many persons that are very good scholar, not only my Italian colleagues and friends, but more or less all our fraternity. I try to introduce a proposal for a project, research project that maybe we can use for in our country or in the European Union, just to develop a program and to obtain maybe some support, economic support or support of other scholars into the university. Because, how to say, it may be funny, but I think that research, when all of us, many of us, take care about one question and the attention for this question is increasing, I think that is passion. We can say we say something that is interesting that can be developed. So we don't know what is the end point. We can try to understand the starting point. So I ask to you if you can agree if this could be a starting point of a research proposal. At the same time, we have also to think after these 15 minutes that we spend in the presentation, how much is important, because sometimes say, maybe joking, investigation is like fashion. And they end with the same investigation and fashion. But fashion can be not stupid, can be just a point for understand some phenomenon that can be fascinating, and maybe can be also to be faced because we perceive that is useful. Okay. I'm collaborated with some persons that are not only my colleagues, but also some colleagues that are working in town planning group in the GIS, that are Sandro Bonifazzi and Pasquale Balena. Pasquale Balena is a master in the geographic information system, and some year ago we produced the first book about the soil take in Apulia. Just thinking about the national dossier about soil take, artificialization, and so on. On the other side, just looking to a new fashion, we speak always about warming of atmosphere, so the hot temperature and the consequence of the environment and the land use. And in the same time, we maybe because we think a lot about settlement evolution, according to the economic point of view, the environmental land project, and so on. We forgot something, that there are many studies, a lot of studies, that are interested about the evolution of soil. And they collect each one of the category of soil. So we say when we speak about goods, not mobile goods, but just fixed on the terrain. But this is for this we also need a very immobile, something that is not must create damage sometimes in the case profit and so on. It depends on the use. And we forgot that the terrain, the surface of heart are also just not mobile, okay? But they works. They works because of some environmental rule, like for instance the exchange between oxygen and CO2 with vegetable water, photosynthesis, and there is a continuous exchange between CO2 and oxygen. What is the fashion? We speak about global warming. So we speak about the most dangerous future for water and for temperature, change of climate, and change also of vegetable and other part of nature. But we don't know. We don't approach with, how to say, a research approach. That is important and could be variable, very spread in the world. So it's important to characterize some way. So I tried to characterize it. I expected to myself and to my colleagues if something can be that we studied already can be better translated if we have a new deal. Okay. Did you understand what I said? Okay, I'm speaking like a Barack Obama, but because I'm just speaking a lot without stopping. Okay. So I think that I hope that the name of this group, Torre, Morano, Locurcio, Anelli, and others, it will increase, and maybe it became a network. Okay, because research is very good and lovable when you have a network. So this is my invitation. Okay. So in 15 minutes, I just spend what I wrote in 2 minutes. So there is an interest. This interest is important for our survival, not maybe the next 10 years, but maybe 50 years. And it's a very complex deal because we need many experience and many scientific role and scientific aspect. So it's not only for one kind of education, but we need to have many scholars with different education and different ability. Just for this, this is, as I said, this invitation. But we will speak about natural science, environmental economics as a starting point because of the measure that we can identify. But when we speak about phenomenon from the economic point of view, maybe can have some scenario for urban economics that can change behavior inside the city. Maybe the city is not moving, but the behavior inside a place that is fixed, it will be changed. And so on. For instance, if we think about the rodal network, we change our custom, but the rodal network anyway is very hot, okay? And the atmosphere is also polluted, something like that. What we have to study just for this, how to preserve nature, how to understand the land use and also the value related with the land use, not only on one side, but maybe 2 or 3 aspects. And the action against the soil take. Soil take is artificialization of soil. In Italian, we say consumo di suolo. It's how to say that we are using something that can disappear in some way. And obviously, we need always how to measure. What is the measure? If we don't have a real measure, we cannot associate with economy or with environment and so on, because the capability is associated to different parts of the science. So economic science, urban science, natural science, and so on. So it's important to create a research group. Sorry? Okay. So, the first one, okay, is give a measure. Land use means everything. We just because it's land, a lot of stuff is caused on the land, but the meaning and the aspect, the character are different. So, which kind of measure unit we have to use? Maybe we can say money on one side, but the other one on the other side we don't know still now. And as a consequence, maybe it's advantageous to join with the many different knowledge. So a group of scholars and investigation and assessment, evaluation. We can assess if we are a failure, a success, but also we should understand also as to assess just to quantify how much is big this phenomenon. So we don't have the measure. We don't know how much is important. So we have to make a perimeter of our problem and give them a quantitative measure. And also some historical approach just to understand how the change of land use, so evolutionary change of land use, against the soil take, how to act, nature preserving, reduce global warming by CO2 preservation. Listen to me just for 1 minute about, especially people that manage real estate. Land use, okay. Land use is a crop, so means factories, rural industry, but also city making is a land use also, and so on. Soil take is unprovided, so we think that something in positive, something in negative. But for atmosphere, if you have 3 square kilometers that are artificialized, it's 3 kilometers artificialized. It doesn't matter about a skyscraper, for instance, because in that moment we are speaking about what is under, and it's not important what is upper. Okay. Global warming, CO2 preservation. So nature is more clever than humankind, because nature collected until now trees, and trees manage CO2 and oxygen. So the environmental system has their own rules, and we speak about a lot of time. I say ecocities. Okay, I'm a bit worried because our ecosystem is not a good ecosystem. It's technology that make this kind of system more livable. But the global warming, if you just stay in a piazza in the 15th of August, you can understand what is warming, but it's not so global, it's just under your feet. Preservation is, for the next time, business as usual, fight for our survival, okay? In this way, I'm speaking like a dramatic, but it's not this, it's just to be rational. We don't have a big interest and consequently we don't have enough knowledge about the problem. It's very difficult to make a forecast. But when people say about CO2, we have the word that saves CO2 inside, put in the atmosphere CO2 and so on. Also, when you have a forest, but also if you are in the North Pole. Okay? Why we speak about global warming? There is something that is, how to say, the destroyer of synergism. We usually say, and this is quite usual when we are scholar and environmental assessment, for instance. In Italian, we say principio di prudenza. So we should be quite prudent. Okay? We have to imagine the worst alternative just to understand how to save the good one. Okay, this is some red rule of sustainability. If I want to save my money, it's better I don't spend much. Okay, so the worst, we speak in the worst alternative just to understand what we have to do and we can do. So CO2 preservation, what is for us? Saving CO2 and just to avoid the CO2, improve the degree in atmosphere. Okay, I started with Sandro Bonifazzi and Pasquale Balena, that are some of my friends. Sandro Bonifazzi is a researcher in town planning, and Pasquale Balena is expert in exercise. It's not quoted here, but they made a lot of reasoning with me in a small group, and sometimes we discuss about how to measure. Just because we don't have enough information. So you can be rational, but we have limited rationality, as we know, and sometimes we don't have enough information. Just in the small corner, we speak about the geographical values of soil. Babel is the city that was destroyed because every town speaks a different language. And this is what appears within researcher, scholar, engineers, architects, and so on. We try to make a dialogue, but sometimes we have different education and it's quite difficult to find a joining point. Not because we are bad, it's just we have to spend money and our time to improve the dialogue. And Urban Landscape, for instance, Perspective is a book by Giovanni Maciocco. It was the dean of the School of Architecture in Sassari. But at the end, it was my professor of town planning in Polytechnic of Bari in 1990. Okay. So he made, for instance, he proposed a multi-criteria method to give a qualitative assessment for the quality of soil. But just because it was emphatic, he was speaking about geografia di valori ambientali. So, environmental value in a geographic arena. And used the multi-criteria assessment just to give him some scores, some point for each one of the part of soil. I go on. If I speak too much, please, you can feel me. No, doesn't matter. You can stop. But why this? Because this is reconnected to the title. It's not, how to say, a research title, but it's a question that is related with what we see. we have to look at geography, and in the past, like the example that I was before, we try to classify and to give a score, or maybe a judgment. Anyway, we discriminate. Make a discrimination, this is better, this is not better, and so on. If say the value of this soil is 1,000, on the other one is 500. So there is a mix of measures. Okay, this measure anyway support our decision. And what is this book? This is a reminding book. Is just looking about different surface. Okay. So in this way we make a simplification. We can measure, we can make a multidimensional assessment, we can associate money to one of that surface. And the other position recollect the identity of that place that you may find different level. Why it is? Because there is a how to say password for the future about global warming that is carbon sink. Carbon sink is a deposit of CO2. And this kind of deposit can be inside the stratification of that surface, but nobody knows. And we don't speak about how much the presence of carbon sink generated, for instance, by wooden area and so on, how much this is saving a bit the humankind from the global warming. So, if you say carbon sink, have a carbon sink and the CO2 is not spread, maybe the temperature can be more friendly. Okay. If you want to ask something that I can answer, okay? Because when I start speaking, I can tell the only question usually is stop. Okay.
10 minutes.
Okay. So this is the first experiment, and until a few years we have only ISPRA making this kind of study. And just to understand with the reasoning that I showed you, this is the Consumo di suolo in Puglia 2007. For the first time, a region autonomously produced a report on the soil take. That is to say, the artificialization of soil, the change from rural to urban, from natural to urban. In the first one, and unfortunately is the last one, because in that period we were quite lucky because we had 1 million euros for investigation. So it was very easy to develop this kind of studies. And but also there is another aspect that this kind of problem was not born because we make like a barrier, a physical barrier, artificial barrier with the ground, but also we lose our food. In fact, the first study about the soil take were promoted by, for instance, International Fund of Environment or Studies of Agronomics and so on, because that surface was our first food in this history. And after we tried to make develop some report, but at the end, money was stopped. So I invite you to collaborate just for this also. And this is land taken food policies. That it was another funding that was only 100 euros, 1,000 euros, and was for food in Onets. But after I started with this kind of publication, CO2 and how to manage the CO2, because we have soil instead, but some soil is very, very precious. So how much is the value? Because if it's orange, we know what is the value in the market. but we know that you prefer a kind of oil or something different, but in the same time, is so complex that it's impossible to say what is the value of a crop. And also, this is a second step of this starting trip for me, and I hope to put a group for have the possibility to make a research program. And what is here? Here, these are two theses, final work. One was in 110 or 110 2 weeks ago. And now there is another girl that is graduating, and she produced this. And in that thesis, so this means that I am very happy if we can collect with PhD students, but also because students are just unlucky respect to PhD. That is not our students. We need to compensate. Maybe 20 years ago, each one of our planner, real estate valuation, and so on, everybody speaking about derivazione, something like that, how to make a balance. Okay, so if we make put in the atmosphere CO2, maybe we could make a compensation and we can have a crop. But also we have a wooden area, and the wooden area is gratis. So you don't have to pay, but you have to save the wooden area, okay? It's something like that. So if we can try to make a balance, the cost-benefit balance, to give a value to how much in euros or in dollar we are preserving as a CO2. So we put a number. And we can put a number because there is another tradition in the policies, European policies and world policies, that is the polluter should pay. We pay because we pollute our atmosphere, so we have a damage, and some way we have to compensate this damage. This is not a very clever concept, because if you do the opposite, I say, okay, I can kill you just because I put CO2 in the atmosphere, but I pay. So I don't have a problem. This means that we can give a value, because it's like in the market. The market, if you, okay, I go to the market, I want to buy some bill for a pollution, and I can polluting, and I spend 1,000 euros. This is the small logic. So we have a value, but nobody, I didn't read nothing about this in Italy now. So it's the moment to start with this kind of studies, because it's how to say environmental economics, real estate, and we can give a lot of names because we have many knowledge. There are engineers, architects, geologists, farmer, scientists in rural environment, and so on. And in the Polytechnical Valley, with the University of Bari, maybe we can have a network between scholars in rural environment and scholars in real estate appraisal, something like that. So it's important because it's multidisciplinary, and we have to understand that this compensation for artificial environment and the demi-natural, we can measure with money, so we can give a value to the demi-natural environment as the starting point for a compensation of environmental or health damage. The last point is this: we don't know who is the victim, because if we speak about atmosphere, we don't know where or some or how much. So these are very important parameters, not only because we have to monetize, but also just to understand how much is the dimension of the phenomenon. Okay, more pollution, more money; more pollution, more damage, and so on. So we still now do not understand the phenomenon. I think that I spoke too much and you are tired. Thanks for your attention. And look at this, just this. This is Aten and this is Foggia. We have more or less the same organization. You pollute here, and maybe here you can save CO2 underground, and the same is for Foggia. Okay.
Thank you very much. Maybe after your glasses. Your glasses.
Yes. I didn't see my glass.
Yes, thank you very much for this presentation. That so that takes into account. Excuse me. No. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation that takes into account some current problems. Where you were talking, I was thinking about the 1 month ago. 1 month ago, we have the annual European Convention of Urban Land Institute, and the constant word was decarbonization. And in particular, they pointed out how the 10% of the countries are responsible for the 80% of CO2 emissions. But in particular, these countries are not so for the majority are the richest one. No? So there is a problem. The ecological transition requires also not only an environmental aspect, but also a socio-environmental aspect. So a problem of justice for the fact that the most affected people from the climate change are people that live in the poorest countries. Okay, so maybe, yes, I see Samuela Labate. Okay, that has arrived for the. Thank you.
Yes.
For the presentation. Okay. So for both the presentation, I think that is the first one is blockchain and the general data protection regulation, healthcare data processing.
No, this paper, we not present this paper, but the next.
Okay, thank you. A special statistical approach for the analysis of urban poverty.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. The floor is yours. If you
Okay.
can share your screen.
Okay.
Perfect.
Can you list? Can you send me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm Samuela Labate, and I present a paper that was written with Massari Antonella and Perchino Paola, both like me of the Department of Economics, Management and Business Law, and Carbonara Monica of ISTAT, Italian National Statistical Institute. The title of the paper is A Special Statistical Approach for the Analysis of Urban Poverty. And poverty analysis is a topic of current interest in both the economic and the social fields, and is studied as a factor in the evolution and measurement of the level of well-being. In the last couple of years, the interdisciplinary debate on poverty has been growing again due to adverse conditions in the health fields and in socio-political fields. Have been done multiple studies with a diversity of approaches. A fundamental prerequisite for a proper statistical analysis of this phenomenon is the need to share an ambiguous definition of the concept of poverty. Having surpassed the identification of the poor with the person living on the margins of society, such as the homeless, the concept of poverty is extending toward that of economic hardship and social exclusion. The paper analyzes the concept of poverty through a multidimensional approach that uses multiple indicators to define a condition of poverty and allows to denote territorial areas and or population subgroups characterized by situations of hardship or severe social exclusion. The data analyzed in this paper allowed the construction of 3 sets of indicators referring to 3 areas of poverty: economic, social, and housing. The data refer to one Italian region, Apulia, and the 2 methodologies were adopted to study the data. The first based on the fuzzy approach that uses the technique of fuzzy sets to synthesize and measure the incidence of relative poverty in the considered population, starting from the statistical information provided by a plurality of indicators. The second, based on a cluster analysis algorithm, the DBSCAN method, for identifying dense areas from the fuzzy values processed by the first methodology. As the basis of analysis for the study of poverty, the data from one Italian region, Puglia, were analyzed focusing on data from a misura di comune, a multi-source statistical information system. The available data provide an understanding of the social, economic, demographic, and environmental condition of the regional territory, along with measures that reflect the levels achieved in terms of community well-being. There are 258 municipalities considered at the data of the survey in the Apulia region, and they are divided as follows. And specifically, several poverty measures were constructed through the analysis of 9 indicators divided into 3 sets for each of the poverty areas identified: economic, social, and housing. The indices were chosen to identify levels of economic, social, and housing hardship and were calculated so that high index values corresponded to high poverty levels. There is indicators related to economic poverty, social poverty, and housing poverty. The data available for each municipality were merged at the provincial level in order to analyze them in each of the 3 identified sets. The higher the value in this table, the more the provinces are as a higher level of poverty, as found in the provinces of Bat and Foggia for per capita gross disposable income. For single income households with children under 6 years of age, the percentage is higher for the provinces of Bat and Taranto. For the third indicator, similarly, as income, the provinces of Bat and Foggia stand out. In general, for each of the three indicators, the provinces of Bari, Brindisi, and Lecce are least affected by poverty values. The percentage value of high school graduates is lower in the provinces of Bari and Lecce, that is, those least affected by poverty-related hardship. The provinces with lower literacy are the same, with a higher percentage value of unstable and low employment intensity. Thus, social poverty affects the area near Foggia and the island areas the most. The percentage values of the index of availability of services in the home are almost equal in all provinces, and in many cases are very low in all municipalities, because all municipalities are reached by the essential services of hot water and sanitation in general. The case for the percentage value of housing units reached by broadband is different. The province of Foggia is always distinguished, which suffers from greater hardship, including housing, and the province of Bari, which on the other hand, differs from the others in terms of better housing condition, but also economic and social condition. A multidimensional index which considers poverty as an overall condition of backwardness and aggravation and analyzes relative poverty within the living standards of the target population seems the most appropriate tool from the perspective of differential socioeconomic analysis of demographic phenomena. The approaches used to arrive at synthesizing and measuring the incidence of relative poverty within the population under consideration are the totally fuzzy sets and the relative method and the DBSCAN method. The first method used the technique of fuzzy sets to obtain a measure of relative poverty incidence within a population from the statistical information provided by a plurality of indicators. The second is a method of clustering territorial units to obtain areas or high or low intensity of the phenomenon that allow the aggregation of contiguous spatial units homogeneous with respect to the phenomenon under study. To overcome the limitation of the traditional approach, therefore, it is necessary to broaden the analysis to include a wide range of indicators of living condition, and at the same time to adopt mathematical tools to adequately account for the complexities and vague nature of poverty. So the fuzzy approach consists in the definition of the measurement of a degree of membership of an individual to the fuzzy totality of the difficulty condition in the range 0-1. Mathematically, such a method consists of the construction of a function of a membership to the fuzzy totality of difficulty. And the function subdividing in clusters of difficulty indicates a distribution rule of difficulty inside the different realities. Subsing the observation of k indicators of difficulty for every family, the function of a membership of a family to the fuzzy subset is described by this function, and the values W in the function of membership are just a weighting system, and minimum, maximum, and average values were calculated for each indicators of the different sets. For each set of indicators, the fuzzy value and its related values were calculated. As a result of the application, we classified the Apulian municipalities based on the fuzzy values, obtaining the classification shown in this table. High values are significant of municipal situation of poverty, vice versa. Low values are significant of situation of no hardship. In particular, the percentage of municipalities with high economic hardship fuzzy value between 0.8 and 1 appears to be smaller, 2%, than the percentage representing social hardship, 25%. Two of the largest percentage value, 54 and 35%, represent high economic and social hardship respectively, fuzzy value between 0.6 and 0.8, compared to a percentage of 3% of municipalities with high housing poverty. Going to graphically represent the different sets of indicators yields the following cartographies. Darker colors refer to the highest value and thus to the municipalities with the greatest difficulties. As for the set related to economic poverty indicators, the municipalities with the high difficulties are only 6, to which are added the 139 municipalities with high values that are distributed in the area near Foggia, Island of Bari, and Taranto. Relative to social hardship, in high hardship and average hardship, there are 65 and 91 municipalities, respectively, distributed among the provinces of Foggia, Bari, and Taranto. And finally, regarding the lack of housing-related service, there are 29 municipalities with the problematic situation located mainly in the hinterland of Foggia and Brindisi. Most Apulian municipalities do not experience a housing problem, at least in terms of the indicator considered, because almost all homes are now reached by the essential services of drinking water, toilet, bathtub or shower and hot water, as well as ultra broadband. Now, the density-based spatial clustering of application with noise is a method that the key idea is to define a new cluster or extend an existing cluster. A neighborhood around a point of a given radius epsilon must contain at least a minimum number of points, PTs. That is, density in the neighborhood is determined by the choice of a distance function for 2 points P and Q. A point is a core point if it has more than a specified number of points, PTs within epsilon. A border point has fewer than within epsilon, but is in the neighborhood of a core point. And noise point is any point that is not a core point or a border point. And here there are some definitions on which the algorithm is based, and this algorithm requires only one distance function and 2 input parameters, and their choice is crucial because they determine whether a group is a cluster of points or a simple noise. The DB-scan algorithm has been applied to municipalities to aggregate them even from different provinces to find spatially close and contiguous areas with similar characteristics to better organize spatial planning. The municipalities were aggregated through the DB-scan algorithm based on the fuzzy value to define the optimal value of epsilon, the k nearest neighbor distances in a matrix of points were calculated. The idea was to calculate the average of the distances of each point to its k nearest neighbor, and the value of k was initialized equal to the same value of mean PTs. Next, these k distances were plotted in the ascending order, and the goal was to determine the inflection point corresponding to the optimal parameter. And the cartography showing yellow on the noise point, that is those not classified by the algorithm. Specifically, this cartography was processed by assigning the values obtained with the DB-scan algorithm, having assigned the epsilon value 0.14, mean PTs value 3, and using the fuzzy values of the first set of indicators related to economic poverty. 10 clusters highlighted with the various colors were obtained. The clusters formed by the municipalities with a high fuzzy value and spatially close are those highlighted by the orange and yellow ochre colors, and the blue corresponding to the areas of the provinces of Foggia and Taranto. The second cartography was processed by assigning epsilon value 0.176 mean PTs value 3, and using the fuzzy values of the second set of indicators related to social poverty. 13 clusters were obtained, those formed by municipalities with a higher fuzzy value and especially close are highlighted by orange, and the yellow ochre and the blue colors corresponding to the areas of Foggia, Brindisi and Taranto. The third cartography was processed by assigning epsilon value to 0.17 mean PTs value 3, and using the fuzzy values of the third set of indicators related to housing poverty, and 11 clusters highlighted with the various colors were obtained, those formed by the municipalities with a higher fuzzy value, and spatially close are those highlighted by the red and blue colors in the areas of Foggia and Brindisi respectively. So, poverty connotes a hardship that does not necessarily end in the lack of monetary resources, but involves a plurality of dimensions of a social and cultural nature, such as education, health, housing, and is embodied in the lack of equitable access to a plurality of essential goods and service. In both academic literature and international scientific records, however, the multidimensional nature of poverty is emphasized, implying the need to use not a single indicator, but a group of indicators which are useful in better delineating the living condition of different individuals. A first idea that emerges from this work is related to the ability to describe territorial phenomena through an integrated model, which starts from the construction of socio-economic indicators, which are multidimensional in nature, and then adopts models capable of identifying areas at risk of hardship through statistical method. It is possible to identify the profiles of new poverty and the impact of poverty on public institutions. In fact, the results presented in this paper from the FADSI and DBSCAN approaches show that almost always the same are the provinces that need more attention from local policies. Here there are some references, and thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting. Also, is connected with the possibility to define evaluation models in order to support also future social policies. And so first of all, a curiosity, but have you shown the outputs to a public administration?
Yes, we are extend these results to another indagine, more ampia, more
Widespread.
then we show these results.
It was very interesting, this modality to assess the poverty, taking into account more indicators. Okay, are there any questions? Okay, so thank you very much. We are in time, 5:10 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All the session. So I can, as I said yesterday, make you free. Thank you all for your presence and enjoy. I wish you that you will continue to enjoy ICSA conference and your permanence in Athens. So goodbye and see you in maybe the next, I hope, ICSA in 2024 for this session. Goodbye.
Also, I need to get to the station for some minutes, so I will come back.
Okay. Good evening. We are going to start session 7F, Smart Tourism 2023. And we have 5 presentations, 3 in presence, 2 virtual. The first presentation is entitled Smart Touristic Ports, the Emergence of Sustainable Marinas from Smart Conversion. What future for Sardinia's ports? The authors are Brunella Brundu, Silvia Battino, and Stefano Carboni. The first article will be presented by Stefano Carboni, and the floor is yours. Let me share the presentation. Please.
Okay. So, I'm Stefano Carbone, PhD student at the University of Sassari in Italy. And today I will present a work that I brought together with Professor Brundu and Professor Battino, which is about the smart touristic ports. I will first introduce the related works, then I will speak about the policies implemented at the local level, and then I will focus on Sardinia smart touristic ports. So the blue planet represents a vital resource for all countries of the world. The transition to a sustainable development, the transition to a sustainable green and smart world therefore also affect the marine and coastal landscapes. The United Nations, during the Rio de Janeiro Plus 20 conference in 2012, introduced for the first time the concept of blue economy.
We use the same data that we used 5 or 6 years ago. So we consider this blur matrix, and this is the result. Now, that's the original image. We mix them synthetically in such a way that we can compare numerically the results. This is the
I don't know. Okay. Okay, io continuo. Indeed, for the better management of the coastal territories, the European Commission released the strategy for the growth in coastal and maritime tourism on February 20, 2014, which aims through 14 action steps to promote the growth of the sector by helping coastal regions and entrepreneurs achieving the goals of the blue economy. The many and varied activities carried out in the ports are a driving force for the socio-economic development of the coastal region involved, with a specific reference to the activities related to the tourism sector. In particular, coastal and maritime tourism, besides representing one of the oldest forms of tourism, has become one of the main areas of the growth in this sector, and now accounts the 44% of gross value added and 63% of the employment in the European blue economy. Along with its 70,000 kilometers of coastline, Europe is one of the main destinations for boaters. The more than 4,500 marinas offer around 1.75 million berths for a total of 6.3 million boats. This diversified ecosystem, crossed every day by significant flows of people and goods, must survive according to the rules of the sustainability, which must be followed by an innovative approach in which information communication technologies represent the tools that can improve and optimize the competitiveness and activities of all operations involved. Italy, due to its conformation, as shown in this table, 7,500 kilometers of coastline and its culture and tradition, has a strong potential and aptitude for nautical tourism. Considering the data of the report of Confindustria Nautica of 2021, 1,622 marinas and multipurpose ports, as ports, small ports, industrial ports, and commercial ports distributed along the Mediterranean coast. As many as 547 are on Italian territory, followed by the coastal region of France, which are 400, and in Spain, which are 370. Here, Smart 2 shows that Italian port structure counts 148,000 berths, of which 46,000 are to be subject to marinas, which have an average of 526 berths, which is more than a double of multipurpose ports, which are 223. Graph 3 showed that among regional rankings, Sardinia holds the first place in terms of amount of berths, which are 21,709. Liguria is pretty close to Sardinia, which has 21,577 berths, and then Sicily with around 17,000 berths. In March 2023, the Ministry of Tourism presented a strategic tourist plan for 2023 to 2027 to Federal Alberghi, indicating the sea as one of the three pillars to which to support the strategy strengthening of Italy tourism as ferries, island tourism, cruise ship, and the driving factor of the entire industry. Then, on the right, the 10th report of the sea economy published in 2022 explained Italy's contribution to the European Union's blue economy, and in the ranking by incidence of employment and of blue economy enterprises of the regional totally, it places Sardinia in the second place, while Liguria has the first place. Among the latest document of produced, we have the regional plan for the network of tourist ports, the Regional Council Resolution 4752 of 24 September 2020. The plan's objective is the construction of the island's network of tourist ports, and it's divided into a mission and a vision. The mission aims to implement a capillary system to access point the hinterland to favor the overall touristic fruition of the regional territory. The vision, considering the island's strategic position of the entire Mediterranean Sea and the quality of both services and environment and the environmental value of Sardinia, would lead it to be a privileged destination for the leisure navigation. Here, the Ministry of Sustainable Infrastructure and Mobility formulated the three Italian maritime spatial plans. Sardinia belongs to the last one to the Ionian and Central Mediterranean Sea, in which improved port energy and efficiency is desired in order to achieve a conversion to a green ports and a reduction in pollution of these areas. The general objective of region of Sardinia is the sustainable development in compliance with the United Nations 2030 agenda, the national and regional strategy for sustainable development. And while focusing on Sardinia marinas, the island strategic development plan of 2021 includes also the special economic zones. The plan proposes a SEZ configured as a network to the coastal area, conceived according to the national dictates, in which a SEZ is also made up of areas that are not territorially adjacent, as long as they present an economical function nexus, in which include at least one port area. These areas are also represented by the ports that present a strategic relevance to the activities of the territorial specialization that are intended to demonstrate a functional economic link with the port area. The SEZ proposed from this plan are already stated as a network configuration. It includes the port of Cagliari, Olbia, Oristano, Porto Torres, Porto Verme, and Arbatax, showed here in the map, in which other port or industrial areas may be later connected. Then, focusing on Sardinia smart touristic ports by investigating on touristic ports in the register of the peripheral maritime offices, it's possible to observe the data relating the pleasure craft on Italian region. Here is shown the data relating the units registered with maritime offices, the kilometer of coastline, and the berths per kilometer of Italian region as December 31st, 2021. Sardinia, with its 1,851 kilometers of coastline, is the region with the largest coastline in Italy. But it has 4K units registered with the maritime offices. However, I think it should focus more on the availability of berths by exploiting precisely the highest station of its coast. It is possible to investigate the data relating the number of berths by region and type of structure to be able to compare this data to the tourist port with two other types, the commercial ports and mooring points. Comparing the data with those of the other region of Italy, it can be observed that the number of berths in the touristic ports of Sardinia is the highest compared to the other region of Italy, thus representing the 16.5% of the amount of berths throughout Italy. With the theme of the sustainability of the touristic port, it must be taken into account that the ports and the port equipment will pollute the marine water. The engines of boats and yachts that remain turned on during the mooring in order to power the electronic devices will pollute anyway. So solutions that make it possible to satisfy the needs of the tourists and at the same time to protect the territory from pollution must be adopted in order to preserve a cleaner sea for the future generation. Cold ironing for us has been implemented as a response to the issues of environmental sustainability within ports, which is an innovative energy supply system aimed at reducing the water and air pollution near ports. Through this process, it's possible to have electricity in the docks so that parked yachts and boats no longer need to keep their engine running while moored, as they will be able to use the electricity directly from the pier. It has been stated that thanks to the electrical infrastructure of the docks, it is possible to obtain a reduction of the CO2 of 50%, 99% of CO, and over 50% of N2O. But in order to maximize this system, the electricity used for the energy supply system should be produced from renewable sources. For example, from solar panel, wind, or photovoltaic plant. The electricity produced can be also stored in lithium batteries to have available electricity when when we can have it from the wind and photovoltaic plants. Now it's well understood that the economy of the sea is particularly important in Sardinia. The Sardinia strong vocation for the tourism increasingly has directed effect on other sectors of the economy, such as agriculture and culture, which place the region in a very low position compared to the other European Union, considered on the basis of GDP. The policies examined in this paper, although for the lack of space, they are briefly mentioned. Explain what can be achieved at the various level for the needs of our economy, but also of our planet, and cold ironing analyzed in this last instance can be the answer for a smart and sustainable management of marinas, both in Sardinia and in Italy and all other marinas globally. And here I finish my presentation and thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Congratulations on your article. Are there any questions from the room, from the virtual room and from the real room? Okay, so we can now move on, and the next presentation is entitled Assessing Management Effectiveness, Mangiares El Salado Fauna Production Reserve Study Case. The authors are Marcelo León, Miriam Hinojosa, Paulina León Castro, and Carlos Luis Redroban Ortiz. Is there any of the authors here connected with us? Okay, since the authors are not in the virtual room nor in the physical room, we can move on. And the next article is entitled Smart and Slow Tourism in Protected Natural Contexts. The authors are Silvia Battino, Giuseppe Borruso, and Ginevra Balletto. Professor Battino, sorry, I apologize, is here. She's going to present the article. So I'm going to share the presentation, then I leave the floor to you.
Thank you so much. Okay. PDF, okay.
So before I have to share the screen.
Di nuovo con questo, giusto?
Sì.
Okay. Here I am. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I am Silvia Battino, a researcher from University of Sassari, and today I'm going to talk about smart and slow tourism in protected natural context. And the work was realized together with my colleagues Ginevra Balletto from the University of Cagliari and Giuseppe Borruso from University of Trieste. Okay, so the presentation is divided into six sections. First part is an introduction to the topic, and followed by a brief examination of the slow and sustainable philosophy in coastal territories and their protected natural areas. We'll focus after on the case study of protected area in the northern region of Sardinia. In particular, we'll focus on the combination of technological tools and experimentation of different itineraries to get to know the territory. And finally, the last part is dedicated to the conclusion and the future development of the research. We know that recently the COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant social and economic impact on the tourism sector. In particular, in the pandemic has had an impact on tourist demand, which is now seeking new balances and more experiential travel. And the preference falls on activities in contact with nature and local culture, where the active participation of the tourist prevails. And therefore, the economic has opened up new opportunity to rethink the way nature-based tourism and is participating, of course, in protected areas and directly towards sustainability goals. Just with reference to protected natural context, we would like to recall the definition set out in the Convention on Biological Diversity created by the United Nations and brought into force in December of 1993. And here in this document, in the Article 2, protected areas are defined as a geographically defined area which is designated or regulated and managed to achieve specific conservation objectives. So regarding the numbers of protected area in the world, we look at data from the world database of protected areas. For example, in Europe, there are approximately 176,000 protected areas on land and at sea. And in particular, in this country, there is a valuable tool that guide protection action on the ground. So we are talking about the Natura 2000 network established in 1992 and consisting of sites of community interest, special areas of conservation, and special protection areas. In the Italian context in particular, the total number is possible count 2,000 more or less 600 sites in the network, and in the slide it's possible to see the total number of protected areas, including those areas classified by law 394 over 1991, which in Article 2 identify them as national parks, regional natural parks, or natural reserves, marine protected areas, and so on, other natural protected areas. So these areas in Italy cover 20% of the land surface and 11% of the marine surface. Therefore, there isn't a figure, but it's not important. In implementing international and European Union indication, also the Italian government is oriented toward activating new economic models, starting from the most fragile areas where tourism can help protect natural resources, and at the same time, it's possible to enhance territorial identities by improving the connection of local actors. So literature and best practices shows that following the smart and slow philosophy is the best strategy to increase the positive effect in the destinations. It's important to remember that without careful site planning, negative effects can still occur, such as, for example, general anthropic contamination of affected areas, or degradation on some areas due to the construction of infrastructure and facilities to support tourism activities, or also increased commercialization of biodiversity to be offered as an attractive resource to tourism. So the slow approach can be applied in different forms of tourism, not only those based on nature. For this reason, we can list some characteristics. For example, the approach of tourists is more responsible, is more attentive, and there is the local community, of course, which plays an active part in organizing and offering the many tourist activities. And respect for biodiversity and cultural resources by guests and hosts, of course, is a fundamental characteristic. So this helps to improve the quality of life in the destination and to remain competitive. So we talk about respecting places, preserving biodiversity, and promoting local identities. But in a world where different realities are often by mass tourism, how we can stimulate potential tourists to experience a slow holiday. Today, we are helped by also geographical information system that represent an added value for the description, representation, and narration of resources. And in relation to this, we can save, process, and analyze a lot of landscape data in order to create tourism development policies and also strategies for an area. So in our case, these issues were explored in the context of the Sardinia region. We talk about an Italian island in the center of the Mediterranean that attracts many tourists every year, especially interested to experience a beach vacation. In particular, we focus on the Northeast region, where there are two areas of important natural value. we talk about the marine protected area Tavolara Punta Codacavallo was established in 1997, and then the other case study is the La Maddalena Archipelago National Park, located here in the northeast of this sub-region of Gallura in Sardinia, near the Straits of Bonifacio, was instituted by a law in January 1994. It covered a land, for example, this last case study cover land area of 5,000 hectares and a marine area of approximately 15,000 hectares. And there are 62 islands, islets with a total of 108 kilometers of coastal development. Our objective was to consider these protected areas, these protected spaces, not only as a physical support to the organization of recreational activities, but as a primary resource capable of attracting an alternative tourism demand, able to reinforce the identity and promotion of these places. So the method used for the elaboration of these figures does consist of a hybridization of traditional thematic cartography with a voluntary cartography, a voluntary digital cartography that enrich the map with the new context. So we have integrated interactive geographic data acquisition and mapping tools such as the MyMaps platform in order to create a multimedia cartography useful for the main purpose, that is sustainable tourism fruition. In particular, different geographical contents were collected and ad hoc information layer were created. In this case, the GPS tracks related to the individual routes investigated were used, and during the data acquisition operation, different activity tracking apps were used, giving priority, for example, to Strava, and linking the data collection to the Google profile. We through the location history service allow one to observe the places visited and the different routes token. So a phase following the acquisition of geographic data and their correction involved the restitution through the Google MyMaps platform. Data acquisition on site, data acquisition on site was carried out between April and June 2022. The trips were carried out according to the slow philosophy course with a counter route in these two protected areas. The routes were tracked using a smartphone in order to trace the routes and then process them in GIS environment and import them into the Google Maps environment, of course, as well as for the further dissemination distribution of the results. The recording of some section and of the route was incomplete due to poor satellite or mobile network signal coverage. In this case, it was necessary to work exposed on the processing of some section of the itinerary of these routes. So all activities were then aggregated in the MyMaps digital environment to create a multimedia cartography aimed to add the slow tourist enjoyment of protected natural context. And so in the MyMaps platform, we have collected, organized, elaborated and shared an environmentally friendly tourist experience. Our coastal proximity navigation, sea, and also the land activities carried out with a slow mobility approach and a privileged observation point have made it possible to create a experiential routes to cross these protected areas with more openness and greater respect for the landscape. In conclusion, in this work, opportunities, we're talking to combine low environmental impact of tourist activities with opportunity for knowledge and enjoyment of the area. Walking activities and also corner routes favoring the slow approach with active participation in protected area, in protected context, territorial context. This green activity can also be implemented in other protected contexts, but still marked by the presence of significant tourist flows, as in the case of the destination Sardinia. Therefore, it would be opportune to redefine the trip in a sustainable way, respecting the place and playing an active part in initiatives and projects useful for creating and appreciating the territory's identity. In this sense, digital tourism services as the most dynamic component of tourism can be a valid aid in balancing tourist fruition and protection. In particular, these hybrid maps help to spread knowledge and collective responsibility in sensitive contexts like Natura 2000 sites, parks, protected areas, and so on. Our experiential routes, named My Maps Slow Tourism 2022, which see a progressive increase in views and shares, and represent a future opportunity to create a similarly voluntary maps in the other sensitive context of Sardinia to promote a broader project called Slow Tourism around Sardinia. And okay, that's it. I finished my presentation, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Okay. Are there any questions or any final remarks from the virtual or from the physical room? Okay, so I guess we can move on. The next presentation, the next article is entitled "The Concept of Smart Marinas for the Implementation of Croatian Nautical Tourism." The author is Andrea Gallo, whom I see here in the virtual room with us. So, Dr. Gallo, am I correct? Am I wrong? Okay, we can't hear you. Could you please raise the volume? No? Maybe you should check the settings of the Jitsi platform and verify which audio source, which microphone is selected as the default microphone.
Can you hear me right
okay, now we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm sorry.
Don't worry. So the floor is yours if you want to share your presentation.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Could you see my screen? Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can, and we can hear you. Okay,
thank you. So as first, thank you to the organizer of this ICCSA conference, and thank you to the organizer of the sessions about smart tourism. And today I'm going to talk about the concept of the smart marinas for the implementation of Croatian nautical tourism. So where are we starting from? We're starting from the aim and the structure of this research, where we want to start from a short analysis about the framework of the Croatia coastal and insular area, and going through this analysis, trying to elaborate a matrix of attractiveness based on two different factors, one related to the service provided by different marinas, into the ability of catch the flows of the nautical tourism boats, and on the other hand, on the capacity, on the characteristics and the capacity of these different marinas to catch these different flows. So, as I said before, we will start from a short analysis of the Croatian geographical framework, where we could see that is an insular. There is a long insular and coastal area that is good for the boat transport and boat traffic related to the nautical tourism. And the coastline is extremely rugged and constantly opening in beaches and suggestive coves. And so under the landscape design, it is perfect for the tourism and hospitality service. There are 7 different regions on the coast of the Croatia. There are the region of Primorje, Senj, Zadar, Šibenik, Split, the Dalmatia, and the Dubrovnik region, for a total area of more than 7,000 kilometers of coastline and over 1,200 islands. So it is a huge amount of island, coast, and so on and so forth. And for this reason, under a geographical point of view, we decided to talk about the nautical tourism related to this particular context. But going on, when we talk about the Croatian nautical tourism industry, we have to know that we are talking about a huge industry that count over 1,800 employees during the summer period, and that manage over or near 20,000 boats per year. So it is a lot. It is really, really a lot. Where we could see that the Šibenik region and the Split and Dalmatian region handle over more or less the 50% of the total flows of the ships of the touristic ships of this zone. Under an economical point of view, we know that the revenues from this kind of industry, it is around 100 million of euros per year. So it is an important economic driver of this region. And right now we are going to try to define what are the aspects related to the different marinas that are able to manage these flows of, on one hand, of economy, and on the other hand, about the tourist people. But as first, in this context, we are going to talk about the smart marinas. So starting from the idea of what are the smart ports, so the ability of being sustainable and efficient related to different aspects, on one hand on the mobility, but also on the logistics, on the environmental point of view, on the economical point of view, on the governance, and also to the service given to the peoples that arrives into a port, or in this case to marinas. When we talk about smart marinas, we have to know that we are facing the problem of how to be as much sustainable and smart as possible in terms of all these different aspects that we are going to see here. And in particular, when we talk about smart marinas, we lost a little bit the part related to the logistics, because we, as we know, we doesn't have the handle of the different freights, but we have to concentrate ourselves on the analysis of the handling of the peoples and boat on the pier of these marinas, and all what concern to the to the environmental and the sustainability of marinas. So that could be the waste disposal management, or the handling of the boats, or some service given to the providers, and so on and so forth. And so it is important to underline that this concept of smart marinas derives directly from the concept of a smart port. So smart in terms not only of the capacity of manage these different flows, but on the all environmental and economical aspects. And going through this concept, arrived in a small focusing related to the marinas, so related to the nautical tourism flows. And in particular, for this work, we start from a huge data collection from, in particular, 3 different sources. The first one was the Transport project, an important European project. The second one was the online Portolanos that are online database. And as third source of information, we use the information provided by all the different marinas online sites. And then we go in deeper, analyzing 5 different marinas that you could see here. That is the Aci Umago, Aci Velico Barbieri, Aci Cobettina, Aci Milna, and Marina Veduda. And it is important to highlight that all these 5 different marinas are marinas of such great dimension that belong to the Adriatic Recreation Intermodal Club. So it is the club of 25 different great marinas, or marinas of great dimension. And so it was quite easier to catch all the information that we are going to present later. And we decided to perform this analysis in 2 different ways. On one hand, as I said before, we focused on the services provided by these marinas. And on the other hand, as you could see here, we focused on the characteristics, intrinsic and extrinsic characteristics of these different marinas. So you could see here that we decided to analyze the marinas starting from the number of the berths at disposal, the total number of moorings, the maximum boat length that these marinas was able to handle, the maximum vessel and the different tonnage of the boat that could arrive there, the width of the port, and also on the accessibility in terms of distance from the main and usable service that could be useful for these different marinas. As instance, the distance from the railway stopped, from the airport, from the bus station, from the highway, from the fireworks station, and from the hospital. And it is also important to put in evidence that I decided to analyze in this case all the marinas directly connected with the highway. So it is marinas located or on the mainland or into the island connected directly from some bridges. And so these are the data provided for what concerned accessibility. For what concerned the services of these different marinas, here you have the list. As you could see here, we use, for instance, the presence of a fuel station, of a docking service 24-hour open per day, the reception office, the night security service, the car parking, that is an important service provided for the different marinas, but also, for instance, the smart booking, the free Wi-Fi, the presence of some small shops inside of the marinas, and so on and so forth. And on these data just provided before, we elaborate 2 different methodology of analysis, trying to put all together into a single matrix of attractiveness of these different marinas. So on one hand, for what concerned these different services provided, we give to all these different services 5% each of important as a parameter, and there is 20 parameters, so it could be quite easy to find a final evaluation based on 100. And for what concern the accessibility, we decided to elaborate a so-called Marine Accessibility Index that we are going to present later. So for elaborating the Marinas Accessibility Index, we decided to use the Simpson Index formula that found a huge application in statistics of the analysis of characteristics of a finite population, in particular for what concerned the biodiversity and biology. And going deeper, we could see that in literature, this formula has been wide used in also other contexts. And so we decided to use this formula to try to figure out an index that could give us some information related to the accessibility of these different marinas, based on all of the characteristics showed you before. And these are the results provided. So we defined this metrics for these different marinas, where we could see that on one hand, on one axis, we have the different service provided by these different marinas, and on the other axis, we could find the accessibility. Accessibility defined as the marina's accessibility index that I showed you just one moment before. And so based on this index, we could have seen that there will be or a lower level of service and lower of accessibility, or a good service and good accessibility, and so on and so forth. And here we could see the final result of these different marinas, where we could see that for the 5 marinas presented before, so the Aci Bettina, Marina Veruda, Velico Valbiadesano, Aci Milna, and Aci Umago, all of these different marinas has a good level of service in terms of service offered of these marinas, but in particular, Marina Veruda has a lower level of accessibility. But we can see also that, for instance, Aci Milna and Aci Bettina has a lower level of service. Of course, the result that I am presenting here show that there are not a great huge difference between all these different marinas, but we have to consider that we take in analysis only and just big marinas belonging to the Aci marinas of Croatia. So also in this case, we could consider that it was only big marinas of big dimension and with a huge rank of service offered. So for this reason, there is a lot of volatility between these different marinas, between one and another. And so in the future, I want to extend this analysis to other marinas, maybe of shorter dimension, do it to figure out a complex map of all these different marines based on, as I said before, on one hand, on the accessibility of and the possibility to give some different service to these marinas. And so I think that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gallo, for your presentation.
Thank you.
On your studies, on your article. Are there any questions from the virtual or from the physical room? Okay, so given the fact that the authors of the other 2 scheduled articles are not here with us, I guess that we can finish here. We can close here this session. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank all the authors for their contribution to this session, for their contribution to the ICCSA conference. And I hope to see you again in presence or in the virtual room for the next sessions of the conference. Have a nice evening and see you soon. Thank you, Professor Boru.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Balletto. See you soon.
Ciao, Alfonso. Thank you.
Salve.